The aroma of sizzling barbecue and the melody of easy laughter drifted through the summer air as Mackenzie Taylor stepped out of her Bentley, feeling immediately out of place. She hadn't wanted to come to this neighborhood barbecue, but her childhood friend Samantha had insisted, claiming Mackenzie needed to remember how normal people lived. As CEO of Taylor Technologies, with its market capitalization of $17 billion, normal had ceased to be part of Mackenzie's vocabulary long ago. Mackenzie smoothed her designer sundress, a simple yellow number that still probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and followed the sound of music and voices to the backyard. Samantha spotted her immediately, waving enthusiastically from beside the grill. "Mac, you actually came." Samantha rushed over, embracing her in a tight hug that smelled of sunscreen and margaritas. "I said I would," Mackenzie replied, returning the hug, "though I'm pretty sure I'm overdressed." "You look gorgeous," Samantha assured her. "Come on, I want you to meet everyone." As Samantha led her through the crowd, Mackenzie nodded politely at introductions, knowing she'd never remember all these names. Her attention, however, caught on a man sitting at a picnic table, helping a young girl who appeared to be about 6 years old assemble what looked like a complex Lego structure. "Who's that?" Mackenzie asked, interrupting Samantha's introduction to someone whose name she'd already forgotten. Samantha followed her gaze. "Oh, that's Kyle Cooper and his daughter Emma. They moved into the neighborhood about 8 months ago. He's a contractor, does amazing work. Single dad, really devoted to his little girl." Samantha gave her a knowing look. "Want an introduction?" "I'm just being sociable," Mackenzie deflected, but allowed herself to be steered toward the picnic table. Up close, Kyle was even more striking. Somewhere in his mid-30s, with broad shoulders, strong hands, and laugh lines around warm brown eyes. His dark hair was slightly too long, as if haircuts were a luxury he sometimes postponed. When he looked up and smiled, Mackenzie felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Kyle, this is my old friend Mackenzie Taylor. Mac, meet Kyle Cooper and his daughter Emma." Kyle wiped his hand on his jeans before offering it to her. "Nice to meet you. Sorry, got a little catch-up situation going on here." His handshake was firm, his palm calloused from physical labor. It was a stark contrast to the manicured executives Mackenzie usually dealt with. "Hi," Emma said, looking up with bright green eyes that matched her father's. "Do you like space? We're building a space station." Mackenzie crouched down to be at eye level with the girl. "I love space. Your station looks very advanced." "Dad helps with the hard parts," Emma confided. "He's really good at building things." Kyle laughed, a deep, genuine sound. "Only because I've stepped on enough Lego pieces in the dark to have earned a PhD in pain tolerance." Samantha excused herself to check on other guests, leaving Mackenzie standing awkwardly by the table. "Would you like to join us?" Kyle asked, gesturing to the bench across from them. "Unless you're circulating, you look like someone who might have a circulation agenda at parties." Mackenzie raised an eyebrow. "A circulation agenda?" "You know, important people who need to talk to other important people." His eyes twinkled. "I'm guessing you're important, judging by those shoes." She glanced down at her simple sandals, which she'd thought were understated. "These old things." "They might be old, but they're definitely not from Target's clearance rack," Kyle noted with amusement. Mackenzie found herself sitting down across from them. "So you're a contractor?" "I run a small construction company," Kyle explained, helping Emma attach a challenging piece. "Cooper Construction. Very original name, I know. We specialize in renovations, though we do some new builds too." "Dad builds the most beautiful things," Emma chimed in. "He made me a princess bed that looks like a castle." "I'd love to see that sometime," Mackenzie said sincerely, watching how Kyle's eyes softened when he looked at his daughter. "What about you?" Kyle asked. "What do you do that lets you buy shoes that cost more than my monthly utility bills?" Mackenzie hesitated. Her occupation usually created an immediate barrier between her and new acquaintances. People either wanted something from her or felt intimidated. I work in tech, she said vaguely. She's being modest, Samantha interjected, appearing with a plate of hamburgers. Mackenzie is the founder and CEO of Taylor Technologies. Kyle's eyebrows shot up. The Taylor Technologies, the one that makes that security software every business uses. Mackenzie nodded, waiting for the inevitable change in his demeanor, but Kyle just smiled. Cool. So basically, you're a genius who protects people from bad guys. Emma, we're sitting with a superhero. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Do you have a cape? Mackenzie laughed, surprising herself. I left it at home today, secret identity and all. Smart, Kyle nodded seriously. Can't have everyone knowing you're a superhero. For the next hour, Mackenzie sat with Kyle and Emma, helping with the space station, talking about everything from Emma's fascination with astronomy to Kyle's latest renovation project, a historic Victorian home he was restoring for a client. It's a beautiful house, Kyle said, his face animated with passion. Built in 1892, and the woodwork is just incredible, but it needs a lot of work. The previous owners tried some DIY disasters that I'm still untangling. Dad says you can't rush craftsmanship, Emma recited, clearly having heard this many times. That's absolutely right, Mackenzie agreed. My grandfather was a carpenter. He used to say that. Was he really? Kyle asked, seeming genuinely interested. Yes. Before I was born, he had a small furniture shop in Vermont. My father went the corporate route, but I still have a few pieces my grandfather made. The conversation flowed easily, and Mackenzie realized she was enjoying herself more than she had at any social event in years. There was something refreshingly direct about Kyle. He asked questions and actually listened to her answers. He didn't seem intimidated by her success or trying to impress her. As evening approached, Emma began yawning, and Kyle checked his watch. We should probably head home, Squirt. It's getting past someone's bedtime. But Dad, Emma protested, we haven't finished the space station. The International Space Station took years to build, Kyle reminded her. Ours can take more than one day. Mackenzie felt a twinge of disappointment as Kyle and Emma prepared to leave. On impulse, she said, I'd love to see that Victorian house sometime, if you wouldn't mind a visitor. Kyle looked surprised but pleased. Sure, I'm there most days. Emma's at summer day camp, so I'm putting in long hours while school's out. I could bring lunch, Mackenzie offered, then immediately wondered if she was being too forward. But Kyle's smile widened. That would be great. How about Wednesday around noon? They exchanged numbers, and as Mackenzie watched Kyle leave, Emma's small hand in his, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Anticipation. On Wednesday, Mackenzie found herself driving to the address Kyle had texted her, with gourmet sandwiches and fresh lemonade in a cooler on her passenger seat. She'd deliberately dressed down in jeans and a simple blouse, though she suspected Kyle would still be able to tell her casual clothes cost more than most people's formal wear. The Victorian house was stunning, a 3-story Queen Anne with intricate gingerbread trim, a wraparound porch, and a tower room. Even in its current state, with scaffolding on one side and a dumpster in the driveway, its potential was evident. She found Kyle in what must have been the dining room, carefully removing layers of wallpaper. He was wearing worn jeans and a faded t-shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the strength in his arms. When he turned and saw her, his face lit up in a way that made her heart skip. You actually came, he said, sounding pleasantly surprised. I said I would, she replied, echoing her words to Samantha at the barbecue. I brought lunch, as promised. You're a lifesaver. I was probably going to work straight through and wonder why I was starving at 3 o'clock. He led her to the back porch, which was remarkably intact, with beautiful turned spindles and a view of an overgrown but once lovely garden. They sat on the steps, eating sandwiches and talking about the house. The owners want to restore it to its original glory, Kyle explained. They're actually doing it right, no corners cut, using period-appropriate materials whenever possible. That must be expensive, Mackenzie commented. Kyle nodded. Very. They're fortunate they can afford it. Most of my clients have more modest budgets, but I try to give them the best quality possible within their means. That's admirable, Mackenzie said sincerely. He shrugged. It's just how I was raised. My dad was a plumber. He always said your work is your signature, so sign your name with pride. Your dad sounds wise. He was, Kyle said, a shadow crossing his face. He passed away 4 years ago. I'm sorry, Mackenzie said softly, instinctively placing her hand on his arm. Kyle gave her a small smile. Thanks, he would have loved this house. He's actually the one who taught me the fundamentals of construction. I learned the rest on the job and through trade school. And Emma's mother, Mackenzie asked, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, that's none of my business. It's okay, Kyle assured her. Claire and I divorced when Emma was 3. She's remarried now and lives in Seattle. Emma visits her for a month in the summer and some holidays. His expression grew serious. It was hard at first, but we found our rhythm. Emma's happy and well-adjusted, and that's what matters. Mackenzie admired his positivity and lack of bitterness. It can't be easy, raising her on your own most of the time. It's not, Kyle admitted. Especially with a small business to run, but I've got good people working for me, and my sister lives nearby. She helps out when I have evening client meetings. And how's business? Mackenzie asked, genuinely interested. Kyle hesitated, taking a sip of lemonade. Truthfully, it's been a tough year. The economy's affecting everyone's renovation plans. We're staying afloat, but it's tight sometimes. He looked at her, his expression open. But we're okay. Emma never goes without anything important. Mackenzie was struck by his honesty and his pride. Many men she knew would have pretended everything was fantastic, especially when talking to a successful woman. I admire that, she said. Running your own business takes courage, especially with a child depending on you. Speaking of courage, Kyle said, starting a tech company that grew to what Taylor Technologies is now, that's impressive. How did you get started? Mackenzie told him about founding the company in her garage 12 years ago, the challenges of being a woman in tech, and the lucky breaks and hard work that had led to her success. I was lucky to have financial cushions you don't have, she admitted. My parents paid for my education. I had savings to fall back on. Everyone has different advantages and challenges, Kyle said. You still built something remarkable. They talked until Mackenzie reluctantly checked her watch and realized she'd been there for nearly 2 hours. I should let you get back to work, she said, standing. This was nice, Kyle said, walking her to her car. Maybe we could do it again sometime, Mackenzie smiled. I'd like that. Before she could overthink it, she impulsively added, Emma mentioned she likes space. The Science Museum has a new exhibit on Mars exploration. If you two aren't busy this weekend, maybe we could go together. The surprise and pleasure on Kyle's face made her glad she'd asked. Emma would love that. So would I. As she drove away, Mackenzie tried to understand what was happening. She dated occasionally, but usually sophisticated executives or successful entrepreneurs men who moved in her world. Kyle Cooper couldn't be more different from her usual type. Yet she couldn't remember the last time she'd enjoyed someone's company so much. Saturday at the Science Museum turned into dinner afterward, where Emma chattered excitedly about everything they'd seen, while Kyle and Mackenzie exchanged smiles over her head. That evening became a Sunday invitation to Emma's soccer game, where Mackenzie found herself cheering loudly as Emma's team battled to a 2-2 draw. Over the next few weeks, Mackenzie found herself making time in her packed schedule for more outings with Kyle and Emma, a trip to the beach, an afternoon at the park, movie night at Kyle's modest but charming craftsman bungalow. You're different with them, Samantha commented one evening over drinks. More relaxed, happier. Is that bad? Mackenzie asked defensively. It's wonderful, Samantha assured her, but are you sure you know what you're doing? Kyle isn't just a fun guy to date. He comes with a child, a struggling business, and a life very different from yours. I know, Mackenzie said quietly. That's part of what I like about him. He's real in a way most people in my world aren't. Just be careful, Samantha advised. Not just with your heart, but with his and Emma's too. The warning stayed with Mackenzie as her feelings for Kyle deepened. She was falling for him, his integrity, his gentle strength, his devotion to Emma, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't noticing. And Emma, bright, curious Emma with her father's laugh and boundless enthusiasm, had worked her way into Mackenzie's heart too. Mackenzie had never thought much about having children, too focused on building her company. Now, she found herself wondering what it would be like to be part of their family. But Samantha's concerns echoed her own. The differences in their lifestyles were significant. Mackenzie's world of board meetings, investor calls, and international business trips seemed galaxies away from Kyle's life of construction sites, school pickup, and careful budgeting. One evening, about 2 months after they'd met, Mackenzie invited Kyle to a charity gala her company was sponsoring. Emma was spending the weekend with Kyle's sister, and Mackenzie thought it might be nice for them to have an elegant evening out. Kyle arrived at her penthouse apartment looking devastatingly handsome in a rented tuxedo, though she could tell he felt uncomfortable. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes warm as he took in her emerald evening gown. "But I'm pretty sure I'm going to use the wrong fork and embarrass you in front of all the important people." "Just follow my lead," Mackenzie said, straightening his bow tie. "And for the record, I could never be embarrassed by you." At the gala, Mackenzie found herself watching Kyle through the eyes of her colleagues. He was charming and articulate, if somewhat out of place among the tech moguls and venture capitalists. Several times she caught curious glances directed their way, and once overheard a whispered, "Who is he?" The evening was going reasonably well, until Kyle excused himself to use the restroom and Mackenzie found herself cornered by Richard Harmon, a notoriously arrogant venture capitalist. "Interesting choice of escort, Mackenzie," Richard commented, his tone condescending. "Slumming it for a change." Mackenzie felt her face flush with anger. "Excuse me." "Oh, come on," Richard chuckled. "The contractor, really? I mean, I get it, he's good-looking if you like that blue-collar thing, but surely you're not serious about him." Before Mackenzie could respond, Kyle's voice came from behind her. "Actually, she seems pretty serious about the appetizers. She specifically recommended the crab cakes." He stepped beside her, his expression pleasant but his eyes cool as he regarded Richard. "Kyle Cooper," he said, extending his hand. "The contractor." Richard had the grace to look embarrassed as he shook Kyle's hand. "Richard Harmon, Harmon Ventures." "Nice to meet you," Kyle said politely. "Mackenzie, I think they're about to start the speeches. Should we find our table?" As they walked away, Mackenzie slipped her arm through his. "I'm so sorry about that." "Don't be," Kyle said, his voice tight. "It's not your fault some people are jerks." But the incident had cast a shadow over the evening. Kyle was quieter during dinner, and on the drive back to her apartment, he seemed lost in thought. "Are you okay?" Mackenzie finally asked as they entered her penthouse. Kyle walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased a spectacular view of the city. "This is a gorgeous place," he said instead of answering her question. "Kyle," she said softly, coming to stand beside him. "Talk to me." He turned to her, his expression troubled. "Tonight made me realize something I've been trying to ignore. We come from different worlds, Mackenzie. Worlds that don't often mix well." "That doesn't matter to me," she insisted. "But it matters," Kyle countered. "Not because I care what people like Richard Harmon think, but because these differences are real." He ran a hand through his hair. "I can't give you this," he gestured around the luxurious apartment. "I can't take you to fancy restaurants or buy you expensive gifts. I'm a single dad with a struggling business and a mortgage I sometimes worry about making payments on." "I don't need any of that," Mackenzie said, her heart pounding. "I've had wealth. I've had success. What I haven't had is someone who makes me feel the way you do." Kyle's expression softened. "And how do I make you feel? Like I'm more than my company or my bank account. Like I'm just Mackenzie, and that's enough." She took a deep breath. You make me feel like I've found something real in a world that often seems artificial. He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. You are extraordinary, Mackenzie Taylor, and not because of Taylor Technologies. When he kissed her, Mackenzie felt as though something long missing had finally clicked into place. Later that night, as they lay talking in her bed, Kyle confessed his own insecurities. I worry about what I can offer you. Not just financially, but in terms of your lifestyle. You travel for business, attend important events. I'm tied to Emma's schedule, to my crews and clients. We can figure it out, Mackenzie assured him, if we both want to. I do want to, Kyle said, pulling her closer. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. In the weeks that followed, they navigated their relationship with honest conversations and thoughtful compromises. Mackenzie adjusted meetings to attend Emma's school events. Kyle rearranged his work schedule to accommodate occasional business dinners with Mackenzie. They found a rhythm that honored both their worlds. Emma, initially cautious about her father's new girlfriend, gradually warmed to Mackenzie, especially when she discovered Mackenzie could help with her math homework and knew how to code simple games. Are you going to marry my dad? Emma asked one Saturday afternoon as they made cookies while Kyle fixed a leaky faucet. Mackenzie nearly dropped the mixing bowl. That's something your dad and I would need to talk about, if we ever decided to do that. Emma nodded sagely. I think you should. He smiles more since he met you, and you're good at making cookies. High praise indeed, Mackenzie laughed, her heart full. The true test of their relationship came 3 months later, when Kyle's biggest client unexpectedly canceled a major renovation project, leaving his company in a precarious financial position. I might have to let some of my crew go, he told Mackenzie one evening, his voice heavy with worry. People who have families, who depend on me for their livelihoods. Could you take out a business loan? Mackenzie suggested. Kyle shook his head. I've already looked into it. The banks are being cautious with construction loans right now and with my current debt-to-income ratio. He trailed off, looking more defeated than she'd ever seen him. Mackenzie hesitated, then said carefully, I could help. Financially, I mean. Kyle's expression immediately closed. No, Kyle, Mackenzie, I can't take your money. That would change everything between us. Why? She challenged. If the situation were reversed, would you help me? Of course, but it's different. Because you're a man and I'm a woman. Because you're worth billions and I'm barely staying afloat, Kyle countered. I'm not going to be the contractor who dates the tech billionaire and then takes her money. I have my pride. Pride won't keep your employees paid, Mackenzie said, then immediately regretted her sharp tone. I'm sorry, that wasn't fair. They both fell silent, the tension between them palpable. Finally, Mackenzie said, what if we approached this differently? Not as a loan or a gift, but as an investment. Kyle looked skeptical. What kind of investment? In Cooper Construction, Mackenzie explained, her mind racing ahead. I've been thinking about diversifying my personal investments anyway. Real estate and construction can be solid long-term plays, especially with someone talented running the operation. You want to invest in my company? Kyle asked, clearly surprised. Only if it makes business sense, Mackenzie emphasized. You'd need to show me your books, your business plan, projections. I want to see everything I'd ask for from any potential investment. Kyle considered this, his expression thoughtful. And if you don't like what you see? Then I don't invest, Mackenzie said simply. This would be business, Kyle, separate from our personal relationship. Could we really keep them separate? Mackenzie reached for his hand. We can try. If our relationship is strong enough, it should withstand this. After several days of consideration, Kyle agreed to Mackenzie's proposal. They spent a weekend going through his company's financials, with Mackenzie asking tough questions and Kyle answering honestly. Your core business is solid, Mackenzie concluded. Your crew is skilled, your reputation excellent. Your problem is cash flow and scale. You're too small to take on the larger, more profitable projects, but too large to operate with your current administrative systems. Kyle nodded, looking both impressed and slightly defensive. So what would you suggest? Investment in technology to streamline your operations. A dedicated project manager to free you up from some of the day-to-day oversight. And a marketing push to target a slightly more upscale clientele, not just the ultra-wealthy, but people who value quality and are willing to pay for it. Kyle listened carefully, asking questions and occasionally pushing back. By Sunday evening, they had hammered out an investment agreement that they both felt comfortable with. "This feels strange," Kyle admitted as they finalized the details. "You believing in my business this way?" "I believe in you," Mackenzie said simply. "The business is just an extension of that." The investment proved transformative for Cooper Construction. With Mackenzie's capital and business expertise, Kyle was able to implement systems that made his company more efficient. He hired a talented project manager who shared his commitment to quality, allowing Kyle to focus on growth and client relationships. 6 months after Mackenzie's investment, Cooper Construction had increased its revenue by 40% and was solidly profitable. Kyle had been able to give his loyal crew raises and hire additional workers to handle the increased workload. More importantly, their relationship had not just survived, but thrived through the process. Kyle's initial discomfort with Mackenzie's wealth had evolved into a partnership where they both contributed their strengths, her business acumen, and his craftsmanship expertise. "I was wrong to be so stubborn about accepting help," Kyle admitted one evening as they sat on the porch of his house, watching Emma chase fireflies in the yard. "It wasn't just pride, it was fear." "Fear of what?" Mackenzie asked, leaning against his shoulder. "Of not being enough for you," Kyle said honestly. "Of you seeing me as a project to fix rather than a partner. And now I understand that real partnership means sometimes leaning on each other's strengths." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "You've changed my life, Mackenzie, not just with the investment, but by showing me what it means to truly collaborate with someone you love." Mackenzie's heart skipped at the word love, which they had yet to say to each other. "Is that what we're doing? Collaborating?" Kyle smiled, his eyes warm in the fading light. "Among other things." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I had planned a more elaborate proposal dinner, maybe a string quartet, but sitting here with you, watching Emma play in our yard. This feels right." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but modest diamond ring. "I know it's not as fancy as what you could have. It's perfect," Mackenzie interrupted, her eyes filling with tears. "Mackenzie Taylor," Kyle said softly, "I love you. I love your brilliant mind, your generous heart, your willingness to enter our complicated little family and make it better. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Mackenzie whispered. "1,000 times yes." Emma, noticing something important happening, ran up to the porch. "What's going on?" "Mackenzie has agreed to marry me," Kyle told his daughter, his voice thick with emotion. "How do you feel about that?" Emma considered this for approximately 3 seconds before breaking into a wide smile. "Does this mean Mackenzie will live with us forever?" "If that's okay with you," Mackenzie said, holding out her arms. Emma launched herself into Mackenzie's embrace. "It's okay, but you have to help me with my science fair project. Dad tries, but he's not as smart as you about computers." Kyle laughed. "That's definitely true." They were married 6 months later in a ceremony that blended their worlds, elegant but unpretentious, with guests ranging from tech industry titans to Kyle's construction crew and Emma's teacher. Emma served as flower girl and junior best person, a title she had invented and insisted upon. During the reception, she gave a toast that left few dry eyes in the room. "Before Dad met Mackenzie, it was just us two," she said, reading carefully from note cards Mackenzie had helped her prepare. "And that was okay because Dad is the best dad ever. But sometimes he was lonely even though he pretended not to be. And now we're 3, which is better because 3 is a prime number, which Mackenzie taught me is special because you can only divide it by itself, and 1. Mackenzie and Kyle built a life that honored both their worlds. They moved into a new home larger than Kyle's bungalow, but not as ostentatious as Mackenzie's penthouse, that Kyle renovated himself with input from both Mackenzie and Emma. Mackenzie continued to lead Taylor Technologies while making more time for family life. Kyle grew Cooper Construction into one of the most respected renovation firms in the region, known for its craftsmanship and integrity. A year after their wedding, they welcomed a baby boy, Alexander, who had Kyle's easy smile and Mackenzie's determination. Emma took her role as big sister seriously, reading to him every night and teaching him about the solar system as soon as he could focus on her homemade flashcards. Did you ever imagine this? Kyle asked one evening as they sat on their porch, watching Emma push Alexander on the swing Kyle had built. Never, Mackenzie admitted. I thought success meant the company, awards, recognition. I never understood it could mean this: a family, a home that feels like a sanctuary, someone to share both the challenges and the joys. You know what I find amazing, Kyle said, pulling her closer. That we might never have met if Samantha hadn't insisted you come to that barbecue. I nearly didn't go, Mackenzie confessed. I had a conference call scheduled that I canceled at the last minute. Kyle shook his head in wonder. All those coincidences that had to align for us to find each other. Maybe it wasn't coincidence, Mackenzie suggested. Maybe some things are just meant to be. As Emma's laughter mingled with Alexander's babbling in the golden evening light, Mackenzie knew with absolute certainty that this, not her company's stock price or her industry accolades, was the true measure of success. A family built on love, respect, and the courage to bridge different worlds. She had walked into a neighborhood barbecue expecting nothing more than an obligation fulfilled. Instead, she had found everything she never knew: she wanted a partner who challenged and supported her, children who filled her heart, and a life richer than she could have imagined in all her years of wealth. Kyle squeezed her hand, as if reading her thoughts. I love you, Mackenzie Cooper. I love you too, she replied, savoring the sound of her new last name and all it represented. More than I ever thought possible.